Sports Talk Chicago. Here with Jon Zaghloul, and we are back and ready for today's special guest. He's the former lead sports anchor at ABC 7 Chicago, the host of a very Chicago New Year on NBC 5. Please welcome Mark Giangreco to the program. Mark, it's great to have you on again. How are you?
John, I am great. It's always great to be with you. So let's just hit on everything you want. I'm anxious to get into it.
How was the New Year's show, first off?
You know, it was really fun. My TV wife, Janet Davies, of course, really wanted to do this, and Channel 5 reached out, which was awesome. And I'm always looking for an opportunity to tweak Channel 7. So this was the absolute perfect vehicle. And we didn't want to step on the people who are already there, the hosts and so forth. So we, Courtney and oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, Sam, but we wanted to just jump in and do little vignettes in and out of commercials and so forth. And it worked out well. We just, we never had a script. We always ad lib everything. And we just kind of come up with bits. So we taped it in the Lowe's Hotel across the street from the NBC Tower. It was pre-taped. We did it about a week before New Year's. And they just inserted our little bits. We're in bed in our pajamas, with all kinds of food. And then we would have special guests who were in all our New Year's Eve shows during the Channel 7 days. They would come into the room and we'd be celebrating and do little bits with them. So we had a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun doing it.
So everything's ad-lib between you and Janet, everything.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Totally. The people who are producing the show, I had worked with Ryan McGuffey because he's a sports producer. He's so great. And then the other people who were involved were more on the news side and management side, and they were looking for scripts and, looking for a little more structure. And we said, we kind of let it rip. And they were all for it. And I think it turned out great.
What makes the chemistry between you and Janet Davies so special?
Well, we almost worked together back in Dayton, Ohio. She was in Cincinnati. I was in Dayton, and she was offered a job to come to Dayton. Even though it's a smaller market, it would have been a bigger job for her. We go way, way back. We're both really, really old school TV people. And she's, she is such the consummate pro. Her background is song, dance, theater, plays, movies, and things like that. And then she became the movie theater critic for Channel 7, as well as doing all kinds of, food stuff and entertainment. She's so versatile. So we've been friends for 40 years. And, it's easy to have chemistry when you've known somebody that long.
What's the best moment you guys have shared together on air?
Well, I don't think it's the one where I licked her face that New Year's Eve. I think it was the Chinese Year of the Dog. That didn't go over too well. And of course, she never saw that coming at all. I just say we got teary-eyed a few years. And what I didn't know, the last show we did at Channel 7, I had no idea that they also had told her that they were going to let her go. And she did that show knowing it was going to be her last. And she didn't really break down and tell me until after, because once again, she's such a professional. We had a great show. It was during the pandemic, and we made the most of it. We were alone in the studio with just some tech people around, but we managed to really party and really put it together and make it look like a festive New Year's Eve show as always. So we stay in touch all the time. She's living over in her beautiful farmhouse in Michigan now, living the good life.
You guys think you'll do it again this year?
I don't think so. That was a one-off. That was just a fun thing. And again, to just tweak Channel 7 a little bit and stick it to them, because obviously I'm never, ever going to forgive or forget how I was run out of there, the way they ran me out, and especially by whom. But I can live in a parallel world. I'm so glad to be out. The freedom is great. Again, I was the luckiest guy in the world to work in television news when it counted, when it mattered. It was the golden age. Everybody made a lot of money. Everybody had a lot of fun. It was super competitive. It was carte blanche. We traveled everywhere. We covered everything. Now, obviously with the internet and social media and everything else, local television news has taken a beating. It's all but dead, relatively speaking, and people are unfortunately just trying to hang on. The demographic is very old. And of course, advertisers don't want an elderly demo. But, I root for all my true friends who are still in the business, and I want them to be able to continue as long as they need to.
Mark Giangreco here on Sports Talk Chicago. Mark, what was your reaction to the Bears' hirings at head coach and GM?
Remember how excited we were for the other Ryan and Matt? And we were all jacked up, and Matt Nagy was the young offensive genius. And, Ryan Pace was this cool dude from New Orleans who was going to prove himself. And that turned out to be an unmitigated disaster. So I think everybody wanted to be excited, but of course it was tempered. Hey, look, Eberflus, the guy, he tried to be funny in his introductory news conference. It didn't go over that well, but he seems like a really personable, good dude who wants to ingratiate himself to the media, and I think he's a good communicator. You saw a lot of video of him as an assistant at various jobs, and he seemed to connect with the players. Ryan Poles, young guy, I think he won everybody over right away with the Larry Ogunjobi mishap. He wanted this great defensive tackle. Everything looked great. The guy winds up failing his physical. And then everybody on Twitter blows up saying, how could you not know this? What a misstep. God, that's a really bad first outing. Well, he went out of his way to publish this lengthy statement and post it explaining exactly how that works. You can't send your team doctors to every single player in the country that you're interested in and have them take a physical and blah, 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 and everything else. This is the process. They vetted it. He flunked the physical. That's how you cancel a deal. And, his foot hadn't healed from his injury. Quickly, he moves on and grabs Justin Jones from the Chargers. Less money, less talent, not the same kind of player, but he scrambled and made up for that misfortunate happening right away. So I have to give him kudos on that. Of course, being a former media guy, I posted on social media and took a lot of heat for it. I said, the statement's great. That's really nice, but fans don't read lengthy statements. It would have been nice if he would have held a news conference, faced the media, faced the fans, gone on camera, and explained it that way. Because I know all the beat writers are anxious for him to interact with them because, of course, Ryan Pace was the absolute worst. He'd speak to reporters once a year before training camp. You never saw him again. He hid in his little cave, and you never saw or heard from him. So I'm encouraged, but you have to take it with a grain of salt and temper it.
What do you make of the Khalil Mack trade, too? That was Foles' pretty much first big move that he made as GM.
I think Khalil Mack was always a rental player. I don't think anybody expected him to finish his career here. It's unfortunate that he's been playing injured really the past 2 of his 4 years. He's on the downside of his career for sure. I think it was a move that had to be made. Now watch him explode with Bosa and the Chargers. I mean, that's a heck of a pass rush. And I hope he's 100%, and I hope he performs for them the way he did when he first got here. It was funny when he said goodbye, trying to ingratiate himself to the fans, saying, always a Bear. Well, I don't know. I always think of you as a Raider, and you were here for a brief time, and who knows where you'll be when you retire. But cool dude. He was great to us. Players loved him. Coaches loved him. But it was a move that had to be made, and I don't think even the most casual fan was outraged. I think they understood what was going on.
How do you evaluate Justin Fields' rookie year, too?
Okay, I'm glad you got to this because, once again, I'm an outlier. For whatever reason, John, this is pure vibe. I have nothing to back this up. And a lot of people look at my comments and say, what is wrong with you? Obviously, he's multi-talented. He is so gifted physically. That one reverse run on a broken play said it all. That was his signature play of his rookie year. Having said that, he has got the longest, slowest looping delivery. He needs to get the ball out a lot quicker. And one of the issues with most rookie quarterbacks is he cannot read defenses, really needs to get much better at that. But everyone expects that year 2, that will automatically happen. He can run like the wind. He's got a rocket arm. He's just got to tighten things up. The thing that really bothers me is every time they would cut to him on the sidelines while the defense was on the field, he's never in his iPad. He's never talking to another coach. He's never talking to another player. He's just kind of sitting by himself, staring off into the wilderness. And his vibe, to me, is like he's too cool for school. Now, I surmise that maybe, and again, this is me speculating, just as a fan, maybe he learned early on that Matt Nagy was fraud and this was going nowhere. And the coaching staff was horrible and that he was just going to, whatever. You remember his statement when he talked about the quarterback room and how he learned so much from his backup quarterbacks, not so much from Matt Nagy. And they contradicted one another all the time. So he just said, I'm going to just go with Nick Foles. I'm not even going to listen to Nagy when it was time for advice. So I think he wrote them off early. And, you know, now that there's a whole new regime, maybe we'll see kind of a different attitude. He doesn't need to be a rah-rah cheerleader, but I'd like to see a little more energy when interacting on the sidelines. I mean, maybe that's so far off and stupid to even bring up, but, you know, I've said a lot of stupid things in my career.
How do you expect him to improve with Luke Getsy as the offensive coordinator?
Well, I think they'll mesh right away. And I think, you know, they're specifically tailoring this offense for him now, whereas Nagy learned it one way from Andy Reid and tried to plug in all these misfitting parts and tried to make it work. And then we have all this backstory coming out about how he would lie to players. He was very two-faced. He, you know, something you'd never expect from him because he seemed like such a personable guy. But I think you realized it, and so did other people in the media. After a while, about, I don't know, especially this year and part of last year, he just talked in circles. It was all word salad. And he was never really straight with anybody. And it turns out that's the way he was with the players. And that building was kind of toxic, really, because no matter what was said publicly, the players didn't respect him that much. They finally realized that he was in over his head. So I think this all changes now. If you look at the staff, it's a veteran collection. And I think a combination of having a young GM who's had his experience so far with one of the greatest franchises of all time in the Chiefs, coming in and then plugging in veteran coaches, I think that's all going to mesh pretty well.
Are you optimistic about the Bears' future? I mean, next year we're talking about $100+ million in cap space, potentially building more around Justin Fields. Does it excite you?
Well, I think next year he's going to go on a spending spree. This year, I wouldn't get excited. I don't think they're a playoff team, but I think you'll see flashes of development. I think it'll be enough to keep the fan base happy, as much as players. As much as fans bitch and threaten to boycott and this and that, they're all going to show up. They're all going to watch every game. They're going to use their tickets. They're going to spend concession money, parking money. There's no way that a real Bears fan or a real NFL fan, any team for that matter, is going to shut off the TV or not go to the game because he's just upset about the way the team is performing. We're obsessed with the National Football League. We can't live without it.
Why do you think that is? Why is the NFL more prioritized compared to NBA or MLB?
I just think it's just the nature of the game. I think it still appeals to the gladiator in everyone, even though the rules are changing rapidly and players are being protected. I just think the drama every day, just the nature of the game. And the NFL has become the preeminent sport and the distraction for everyone in our country because you really, really don't know. It's very seldom that you can go chalk and pick every game. It's amazing that the worst team in the league can actually beat the front runner on any given Sunday. That cliche, that movie title. It's true. They've developed a product where you have to actually watch the game. And it is so exciting. It's very militaristic the way it's set up. I think it appeals to everyone on 500 different levels. And now that gambling is integrated into this legally, oh my God, forget about it. These private bets are ridiculous. You can make bets throughout the game. You can change your bet. You can bail on your bet. It's nuts. And I love the ratio of betting commercials in your face to the little disclaimers or the little public service announcements that say, if you have a gambling problem, contact so-and-so. I think it's like 1,000,000 to 1. They cover their butts with a little disclaimer, but it's a dangerous proposition. People need to be careful because it is addictive.
Have you ever bet a game before?
No, I don't. I'm not a betting person. I have an addicted personality, and I have to be aware of that. I am not a betting man. I don't gamble. I really don't know anything about gambling. I was never good in math. I don't get the terminology. I have been offered to do a podcast with a gambling professional who's locked in, who's a really good odds maker. And I just felt like I'd be an idiot. I'd just be deferring to him all the time. I was more than willing to do the commercials and promote them, but it's not something that really interests me. I don't get that extra juice by watching a game, or a lot of my friends will say it's so much more exciting when you have money on it. Well, it's exciting enough for me. So I'm glad I don't bet, because I would lose the house every week for sure. When I was working, I always feared that I had too much information. It would be very confusing. And, now that I'm a casual fan, it's like, when you make your NCAA picks, you go by the mascot, their colors, or where you went to school. People making Super Bowl picks, invariably, people who aren't a football fan will pick a team just because of its logo or nickname or some weird thing like that, and they win. They might have winning with no information at all. So, yeah, I don't need to have money on the game to be excited.
Mark Giangreco still here on Sports Talk Chicago. Mark, a few more questions before we finish up. First off, the Bills. What do you make of their offseason?
I think they're $500 million over the salary cap. It's unbelievable. Brandon Beane went nuts. I think he's got some sleeper picks. Jamison Crowder, who was the Jets' leading receiver for the past 3 years, who nobody knows about because he was on the Jets. I think that's a good move. I'm glad Cole Beasley is gone. I thought he was a very selfish player. He refused to take a pay cut. He divided the locker room because he was an anti-vaxxer. And I was sick and tired of Josh Allen throwing little 5-yard ins and outs to him with no runs and no yards after the catch. So I kind of soured on him. So I'm glad they got Crowder. They picked up a couple other guys that I think are going to be rock solid. They brought back Shaq Lawson. That defense was not good last year. I mean, it was better than most, but for a team that should be going to the Super Bowl with Josh Allen in that offense, they had no pass rush whatsoever. I think they absolutely overpaid for Von Miller at this point in his career. 6 years, $120 million, which you'll never play that long. You'll never see all that money, obviously, because, as you know, NFL contracts, most of them are not guaranteed unless you're a guy who's been charged with 22 civil counts of sexual assault. Then you get the most incredible guaranteed deal of all time. Boggles my mind. But I think Von Miller's an expensive third down pass rusher. We'll see how that pans out. I mean, obviously, I hope he does great. Everybody wants to go to Buffalo. It boggles my mind, number one, because of Josh Allen. But when they get there, everybody made fun of Buffalo. Small market, Rust Belt city, blue collar, not very exciting, not very glamorous, not very worldly. When players get there, Drew Bledsoe went off on that. When he lost his job with the Patriots, they eventually sent him to Buffalo. He's like, oh, my God, I don't want to go there. He got there, fell in love with the city, fell in love with the fans. Every single player who's gone to the Bills has had the same experience. The fans are absolutely spectacular. I'm biased. I'm prejudiced, yes. But even before, there was a thing called Bills Mafia, and people were jumping off RVs and smashing picnic tables. The Bills fan base was incredible from day one in 1960. And, I didn't care much for the NFL at all as a little kid growing up. It was all about the AFL and evening up those Super Bowls and Joe Namath and Hank Stram and Lenny Dawson beating the NFL. That's all that mattered to me, because it was a more colorful league, a much more exciting league, a league that actually drafted and signed black players from historically black colleges, which had never happened before. So that fan base has been ravenous. Yeah, it's a small city. It's finally starting to make a comeback, and, young people are moving downtown and gentrifying the city, even though they're about 40 years behind all the other cities that have done that. every player, I don't care if they played in LA or New York or whatever, they get to Buffalo and they can't believe how great it is, how great the city is. You know, the restaurants, the bars, moreover, the fans, blue collar, rough, tough attitude. A lot of people are out of work. They still manage to pay for their season tickets, and they love the fans, and the fans love them. I have a cousin who had season tickets and still does, first row right behind the Bills bench. And he was in a rock band called the Blue Lights, and he hung out his banner advertising the band when they used to allow you to do that in stadiums. And all the players loved him, and he was the greatest guy in the world. He was also a cook and a chef, and he would cook for all the players after the game out in the parking lot. And he was a political activist, and he ran the campaign of Phil Hansen, a lineman who eventually went on to become a state senator. So my cousin was so locked in. He had his license plate says Bills won. And Ralph Wilson, the late owner, actually asked him if he could have the plate. And my cousin Sammy said, win a Super Bowl and we'll talk about it. He refused to give the owner the license plate. So I'm so proud of the city. I'm so proud of the team. It's so exciting to have somebody to root for. You know, I was not born or raised in Chicago, so I feel like for 40 years of covering the Bears, I could be a little more objective. I've never been a homer, but if you want to talk about the Bills, I am just the ultimate homer who is really blind by loyalty.
How close do you think they are to a Super Bowl?
Well, obviously they have enough talent. They could win it this year. They really need to win it this year. You know how small these windows have become. If they don't win it this year, they have to win it next year. I think they really do. I think barring any kind of injury, and he seems invincible at this point, Josh Allen's going to have some spectacular numbers, and he'll have a Hall of Fame career regardless. But I think Brandon Beane in the front office and Sean McDermott as head coach, they are rock solid, and they're locked in for the long haul. And I don't know, but I have a feeling it's got to be this year or next. I really do.
If they do win, how do you plan on celebrating?
Oh, my God. Well, I'll be there. I'll get tickets somehow. I'll call in every favor. Maybe I can get somebody to slip me a press pass. All my high school buddies and I, we will all be there. And we'll be tailgating, and we'll be squirting each other with mustard and ketchup, and we'll be jumping on tables. And, you know, even at 70 years old, I think we're still nimble enough to party hard.
Mark, before we finish up today, last question. Why do you cry when your son won the MVP in the state hockey tournament?
Well, you know, that question was posed on Twitter. What was the last, or what was the greatest sporting event that actually made you cry? Well, being in the business, I never really cried at any sporting event I was covering. I certainly cried when the Bills lost 4 Super Bowls, but that was a different kind of cry. My oldest son, I'm blessed to have 3 tremendous sons who were great hockey players, and they were all great players. They played AAA, traveled all over the country, some of them went over to Europe and played in tournaments all throughout Canada and everything. Had great experiences, great bonding on the road with my guys. And my oldest son was on that powerhouse New Trier team that won 5 straight state championships. And his senior year, you know, he was one of the better players on the team. They're playing Fenwick at the United Center, which was so awesome. They're so great of the Blackhawks to host the state hockey championship. And now it's become a thing, and the games are televised, no less. So there were almost 10,000 people at this game. And, you know, my son goes out there and gets a hat trick and a couple of assists, and they blow out Fenwick. I think it was 10-1. And he was named MVP. And I got to pose with him on the ice with both his trophies. And I was just a basket case. I was just bawling my eyes out. I couldn't control myself. As Troy Murray and Judd Surratt actually did the game, and my mother got to see it in Florida because she had cable, of course, and it was on. What was it on? You know, there was Sports Vision, Sports Channel, Fox Sports Net, then it kept evolving, NBC Sports Chicago, everything else. I think at that time it was Fox Sports Net. She got to see her grandson. I was just beside myself. I mean, this is 2002, and obviously it's your son. It's, it's your flesh and blood. And all three of my boys, just when they take the ice and you see the name on the back of their jersey, and, I always tried to be a good hockey dad and not get too crazy. You want to live vicariously through them, but you need to back off. Let them be coached. Don't ever talk to the coach. Don't be one of those annoying hockey parents. I think I was a little out of control with my first son. I got better with the second. I think I was great with the third. So you learn how to be a hockey parent. But that moment, I was the between period guest on the telecast, and I got to watch the game from the Zamboni area. So I was on the glass the whole game. And again, you see your son perform like that. It was just, and then, he wins MVP and they win another state championship, and then he goes off to Harvard. Where'd this kid come from? Luckily his mother was super smart.
Well, Mark, thank you so much for joining me. Always a pleasure to talk with you, and best wishes in retirement now. It's really great
John,
to have you on.
Very much. But, if I get bored, I'll just give you a call.
That's perfect. You're welcome anytime.
Thanks. Good luck to you.